To start off, there's enough documentation about racial profiling and police misconduct towards black people to show that I am not exaggerating when I say that this cop was probably acting on racist notions. The bus driver was black, but the arrest happened in the predominantly white neighborhood that I lived in. In that type of environment, it's not hard for a black person to be arrested for no reason, even if the other person is black. It may seem that the bus driver was an innocent person involved in this, but I have had some bad experiences with bus drivers across different states. I usually write complaints about the drivers and move on, something I would have done in this case if I had not been arrested. I will read some of the complaints that I wrote about the bus drivers in the past and show a video of a bus driver's bizarre behavior towards me. This is an email that I sent to a bus company in a different state a couple of years ago. I am going to omit some dates and maybe some identifying information because I just want to get to the gist of the email and not all the other unnecessary details. I have had some very interesting experiences riding your bus. Most of the time, it is uneventful, but there have been times where your drivers have acted very bizarre. Here are three such incidents. Things started off normal until I pushed my cart into an empty space. There was no one on the bus. The bus driver got annoyed and said, "We're not supposed to have all this stuff on the bus." He lifted up the front seats and said, "We're not a moving company," and placed my cart on the wheelchair latch. It was bizarre. There was no way the cart was going to move, but he felt the need to put the cart on a wheelchair latch. This was during the holiday shopping season, and I had items that I purchased. It was very different from the items that I usually carry on the bus after shopping. Okay, and the next incident happened. That's my ad lib. And back to the email. He lowered the bus so I could get off, but didn't give me time to get off. He actually started raising the bus and closed the door on my cart while it was still partially on the bus. I politely said to him, "Sir, you can see that I am not off the bus. That is dangerous behavior for a passenger." He looked at me with a stone cold face and said, "You're welcome for the ride." I didn't say much back and tried to get the cart off the bus quickly. He drove off. It's a good thing that I didn't get injured or break my cart because of his dangerous behavior. Even more bizarre was an incident that happened in the summer. A few bus drivers, not all of them, on the route had been giving me a hard time about my cart. I let them know that I already emailed the bus company about this issue and even called in. I was told that I could board with my cart and didn't have to unload it unless it was really necessary. It was a small cart with two bags on it. To unload and reload it each time I got on would cause unnecessary delays. It wasn't in the way and fit neatly in the front of one seat. I usually stand in front of it to make sure it doesn't move and I don't block the aisle while doing so. On this day, all the front seats were up and it was clear for me to put my cart in front of them and be out of the aisle. The bus driver told me that I had to take everything off the cart and put it underneath the seat. I told him that all the seats were up, so there was no way to put anything underneath the seat. I showed him that my cart was out of the aisle. He kept telling me that I had to put everything out and put it underneath the seat. He didn't care if the seats were all up. He kept saying that was the rule. I asked him if he wanted me to pull the seats down, take all my stuff off the cart, and put it under the seat. He said yes, and I told him that didn't make sense. He stopped the bus and pulled all the seats on one side of the bus down, Another passenger politely told him that he saw me board the bus with my car and never saw a bus driver give me a hard time. The bus driver said that he must follow the rules. The other passenger, who I didn't know and who didn't know me, told him that the cart was not in the aisle. The bus driver got on the phone to ask for a supervisor. I already knew that it would take a while for the supervisor to show up, and I needed to get to the bank before it closed, so I did what he said. I quietly rode the bus all the way downtown. I was going to ask for his name, but the passenger who tried to assist the situation was already up there demanding the bus driver's name and wanted to speak to a supervisor. I wanted to report the incident also. The bus driver refused to give his name. He said that all that was needed was the bus number with no name. He asked the other passenger what his name was, and the passenger said his name, but the driver responded that he didn't care. The bus driver went to get a supervisor, then came back to argue with me and the other passenger who was waiting to speak to a supervisor. He actually got in the other passenger's face, even though the passenger wasn't acting hostile. He left to go get a supervisor. I stayed around as long as I could, but I really needed to get to the bank before it closed. I thanked the other passenger for helping me and staying I thanked the other passenger for helping me and staying to talk to the supervisor. I told him that he could email a complaint if he also had to leave because it was taking a while for the supervisor to come. I don't know what happened, but I wanted to notify you of this event. It took a while for me to write these complaints because I'm busy and have little time to sit around writing complaints about bus drivers. Most of my trips on your buses are quiet and uneventful. Most of your bus drivers are polite and respectful. I have to tell you about these three because their behavior was bizarre or even dangerous. I limit my bus trips and try to walk as much as possible because I don't need the hassle. No passenger should have to deal with that type of behavior from a driver unless they were causing an issue, which I wasn't. Hope this information helps you to address bad or dangerous driver behavior so that your company can be represented correctly and passengers can enjoy their ride. Thank you for your time. End of email. The bus company wrote back and said, "Good afternoon. I am sorry for the unfortunate experiences you had on our bus. Relevant department manager and team has been alerted to the issue and will look into it and take appropriate action. Kindly, the person who sent the email." This whole disassembling my cart thing started when a previous bus driver wanted me to disassemble my cart and put everything under a seat when he picked me up at a shopping plaza. I told him that I regularly ride the bus and the other drivers didn't ask me to put my items under the seat because they were secure on a cart that I stood in front of to prevent any shifting. He called in the supervisor and cops. I think it was standard for cops to come when a supervisor is called to a stop, and it wasn't necessarily that I was dangerous or committing disorderly conduct. The supervisor made me put the items under the seat. The cops stood by and didn't really get involved. They let the supervisor handle it. The cops were nice and left after the matter was settled. I have it all on video. I didn't want to unpack my items because it would take a long time for me to take everything off my cart and put it back on just to get on or off the bus. I complied with the bus driver and filed a complaint with the bus company. I kept disassembling my items to get on and off a bus until I got approval from a bus supervisor that I didn't have to do that. After a few calls, I got approval and never had to disassemble my items again. These incidents have led me to be careful around bus drivers and try to avoid arguments. Arguments happen sometimes, but I usually report the bus driver to the bus company and the issue is resolved without an arrest. That is why this wrongful arrest threw me off. What the last bus driver did sounds bizarre and hard to believe, but here's the video of the incident. There is a special effect on the video to prevent identifying people because what happened is more important than who was involved in the situation.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear you.
You can't use the shopping cart like that. You have to pull everything out and put it underneath the seat.
The seats are all up. So
I don't want to see anything in the aisle.
there's nothing out on the seats are up, so I
Yes,
can.
it is. What happened?
Well, you see the seats are up?
Huh?
The seats are up already, so I can't, so I'm kind of under them
You
already.
have to pull everything out and put it underneath the seat.
The seats are up.
That's a rule.
I know, but the seats are already up.
Pull down.
You want me to put the seat down, take off my stuff, put
Yeah.
it under the seat?
Yes.
That doesn't make sense.
Yeah, you have to follow the rule.
Sir, I've seen this lady get on the bus every single fucking day that I work with.
No.
It's like
We don't see anything in the aisle.
It wasn't in the aisle.
You're the
Put
only
it
person
underneath
that's
the
working.
It wasn't in the aisle.
Yes, it
See,
is.
when it's like this, it's not in the aisle. You can call
It's
it
not
in.
in the aisle.
You want me to? That was silly.
I need a supervisor and PD
Oh my
and
God.
lecturer.
You know what?
Okay, meet me on the third floor.
I'll do it. But these people got somewhere to go.
In the video, you saw that I tried to reason with the bus driver, and another passenger even stood up for me. When that didn't work, I complied with what he said to avoid any further issues. I contacted the bus company afterwards to seek a resolution. The resolution was that I didn't need to assemble my cart. This is how I handled disputes with bus drivers because I don't want any issues. I was part of a video that supported giving the police full funding a few days before being arrested by a white male cop for the most dubious reasons. At the time of arrest, the white male cop told me that I was under arrest for disorderly conduct because the bus driver said that I had called him a effing idiot and yelled at him. He said that several witnesses heard me yelling. In court, he beefed up the charge to say that I entered the bus, yelled vulgarities at the bus driver, got in his face, and disturbed the peace, and that several witnesses saw me do this. That is not what happened. I am facing a misdemeanor charge over something that wasn't even a crime. The case is still in court, so I can't say much about it. I will talk about my first experience with legal system lynchings and why I have little confidence that I will get a fair trial. I am breaking my silence about the first legal system lynching. I held it in for years. It's a legal system lynching because a black person is dragged through a corrupt legal system and mainly white people gather to hang them using the trial as a noose. False arrests usually lead to false convictions due to legal system collusions, as you will see. They used the false conviction from the first legal system lynching to convince my friends and family that I was some crazy, violent person. I never talked about what happened to anyone because it was so crazy that it may have made me seem even crazier. After all, that type of corruption supposedly doesn't happen anymore, especially not in America and not in middle class communities. I didn't think anyone would believe me, so I kept it to myself. They were able to drive me to poverty and homelessness, and I had to stay with the friends that they convinced that I was crazy. I started researching to find out what was happening around me. I wanted to find out about these people, expose them, and clear my name someday. It took years for me to get back to the middle class. I walked on eggshells for over a decade trying to stay out of trouble. They have made my life hell, taken all I had, and tried to drive me crazy. Crazy so that when I spoke about what happened, no one would believe me. I was able to keep sane despite years and years of constant sabotage. Now that there is another legal system lynching attempt, I refuse to stay quiet. I know that they will use the first legal system, lynching, to make me look bad to the public. I'm not crazy. They set me up in a situation that allowed them to take everything I had. They did that a few years ago. They have my journals, pictures, and other things, which I know that they will use to paint me as this troubled, mentally ill person. So please don't believe anything written about me based on the belongings that they took from me unless I am there to confirm or explain it. I am going to talk about what happened, even though a lot of people will find it hard to believe. I really don't care if people don't believe me. I want the world to know what was done to me so that they will doubt the lies told about me and be more aware of psychopaths. I am one of the most quiet and peaceful people you could ever meet. I keep to myself and try to avoid fights. If this could happen to me, it could happen to anyone. So please learn as much as you can about psychopaths and protect yourself.